Good evening. Welcome to this regular session of the Fayette County Board of Education. It's October 22nd, 2024. I'd like to ask Ms. Whitlock if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Whitlock. Thank you, board members. Let the record reflect all 5 board members are present this evening. We have no public delegations and comments. Board members, I do have a correction for the 1000 series. We'll be removing and tabling item 1028. And we'll bring that up, I believe, on our next agenda, correct?
Yeah, and keep Anna in your prayers, guys. Not anything wrong with her physically. Her mother is struggling really bad, and that's where she's at right now, so.
All right, thank you. So we'll get started with Miss Dooley and a something we're anxious to do, some award presentations. So.
Amen.
I have a very exciting presentation to make to you all this evening. As you all know, we have a scholarship program in West Virginia called the SMART 529. And that program allows parents, grandparents, friends, whomever, to contribute to a college fund for children. And you can start as infants and you can continue putting into this fund all the way until children graduate. Along with this program, there's an essay contest, and it's called the SMART 529. What do I want to be when I grow up? So, Ms. Dial, you really want to pay attention to this.
We still have a chance.
We do, because the young lady that I'm going to introduce to you all in a moment wrote an essay as a kindergarten student and said that her career choice was a teacher. So we're starting them young. This is called homegrown, is it not?
Yeah.
This is grow your own kindergarten.
We'll sign a letter of intent if she's going to do that.
So the SMART 529 essay allows parents, which I love this, the parents work with the children and then write an essay about what they want to do when they grow up. So when Emma Stover, in just a moment, Emma, we'll have you come up, when she was in kindergarten, she wrote that she wanted to be a teacher.
Amen.
And they submitted this essay. And, you know, hopes were that she would do well. You know, I mean, of course, it's just an accomplishment for a kindergarten student to submit anything, you know, of an essay form. And the parents read it, and they awarded her one of the winners. And so one of the winners, they get a small stipend to begin, $500, which is not really small, but it gets bigger. And then the school receives the same amount. So then the winners are then put in another contest, and they choose one grand prize winner. And Emma is the grand prize winner for the state of West Virginia.
Whoa!
So Emma received $5,000 for this.
Wow.
Wow.
And we have some people here that we're going to have come up and meet you. We have Emma and her mother. And I bet you know her great-grandfather, a familiar face to Fayette County Schools, Mr. Holliday, and her mother, Caitlin Stover, and Miss Bishop from New River Primary. So if you all would like to come up, we'd like to get some pictures.
All right.
Do you guys somebody take pictures?
Yeah. Who's going to take the picture? Derek is. Derek's the one.
Congratulations.
You going to get up with me?
Yeah.
Miss
You want
Bishop.
me to get?
That is fabulous.
I didn't realize it was there. You know what? You know what you have? I'm like, I did not realize who was there. That's a true pleasure. I mean, that even makes me happier. Didn't connect it all together. I did just now.
No longer the Wilburn.
This was one of my great students when I was his principal. What an honor. What an honor. Last year did fun.
We were talking about this at Burger King.
I'm walking back here.
Congratulations. Miss Bishop.
Friday. Good to see you.
All right, what a way to get started.
Amen.
Okay, with that, I think I'm going to invite Mr. Payton up, and he's going to do some introductions around our security program and the security report.
Follow that, Tim.
No pressure, right?
No problem, no problem following a small child.
Exactly.
Gary, that even makes us scary. That makes us happier when we see them. That does.
So, at this time, board members, and Mr. Hoag, sorry.
That's okay.
Whatever he is.
But anyway, at this time, I'd like to introduce you our two new safety and security officers for Fayette County Schools this year. We have the Mikes. I'm going to do it alphabetically
Mike and Mike.
so that, I don't have, the deputy sheriff and the sheriff association over the state troopers or one versus the other. They do enough of that on their own.
I'll listen to
so-
this tomorrow. You realize
Oh my
that.
gosh, I listen to it all the time. So anyway, so we'll do it, like I said, we'll do it alphabetically. So I'd like to introduce to you Michael Dickerson and Michael Fridley. So Mike and Mike are our safety and security officers. They're spending time at various schools. I'm going to let them tell you what it is that they're doing and talk to you a little bit about that. And if you have any questions, please ask them lots of questions. Mike Dickerson especially said that he wanted all the questions you could probably
I don't know, I'll make it up.
We already heard about Fridley dancing at Meadow Bridge.
There's a lot of stuff you got now, I'm just.
Let's start there.
Hey, be good now. Good afternoon, board. First of all, I want to say, personally for me, I want to say thank you for each of you. Give me the opportunity to work in the position I am now as school officer. I love it. It's a lot of fun, and I think Mike and I, with the work of the school board and the schools themselves, we accomplished a lot in the first 2 or 3 months we've been here. The president was in a meeting one day, and he said, "How's it going, Mike?" We talked a bit. He goes, "The main thing is to see what the kids, do they feel safe?" So I had them back in my little mind, and I went to Meadowbridge High School one week that I'm down there, because Mike and I, we rotate. A week at Meadowbridge and divide one day, and then Mike, he would be doing all the schools and vice versa. We switched. So I sat down with a lot of teachers, walked through the hallways, sat down at lunch, and I said, "Do you guys feel safer because Mike and I are here?" 100%, yes, we do. Now, one said it feels like a jail, but yes, they said they feel so much better for us being down there. And then I started going to other schools that don't have pros, because of course, we're not gonna step in on the pros. Them guys are top notch we have.
Corey does a great job.
Corey,
And
Rachel.
Rachel does a great job. Like Mike said, I think the kids have kind of taken to us too. In the schools that we spend a lot of time at, Divide, Anstead, and Meadowbridge, since they don't have pro officers. I know I was at Meadowbridge the other day, and I saw a little girl come up, hug Mike twice. They high-five us in the hall, fist bump us. They seem to love us down there. I know Mike and I both went down to a couple Meadowbridge football games, support those kids, and something really nice they did for us. They had polo shirts made for us with Meadowbridge logo with our names on it, so we can wear it when we're down there at their school, which I thought was fantastic. I really appreciated that. Everything has been going very well with the principals. They've been very receptive to suggestions we've made.
The schools are doing awesome. Guys and ladies, Fayette County Schools in the state of West Virginia is up here compared to every other
Amen.
county.
Amen.
Hands down, we
Amen.
heard it all over the state. We have people come here left and right. My wife, y'all know Paula, she's even get calls from her county. "How did y'all hire these school officers?" I have sheriffs call me, "Mike, my guys want to know what's going on in Fayette County, Fayette County, Fayette." So kudos to each and every one of you, because I'm telling you, technology-wise, school-wise, great staff, great kids, we're making a difference, and it starts with all of you.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that too, not
Yeah.
only just the positions, and again, I'm with Mike, extremely grateful for the opportunity to do this job. But not just in the hiring of us, but the technology that's been brought in. Like he said, we've had multiple counties contact us. We have, actually, Cabell County is supposed to be coming down this Thursday. We've had Putnam County, I think Clay County, the state school security, safety security guys are coming down Thursday. I've been in contact with them some this week. Their guy for Fayette County, which is Tommy Williams, has been starting his yearly coming around to the schools and stuff. So when I first started this job, I was kind of wondering how it was going to be as far as security wise, but like Mike said, other counties I've been to, I went to Putnam County and watched a drill that they did, and I will say head and shoulders above anything I've seen. I brag Fayette County up every chance I get to whoever I can as far as what you guys have done and implemented in our schools. It's just phenomenal.
Is it permissible for me to highlight a few things so that they can report out to us?
Okay.
I'm going to ask them.
Put the timer on.
Okay. Guys, what I'd like to just grab some of those thoughts so that the board has some details. We probably have experienced a little bit more of what I consider threat emergencies this year than we ever have. And not pleasant. Those have not been pleasant. It seemed to be a movement statewide. It's not just in particular concentrated in Fayette County. I don't know, it's like we see TikTok crazes. It's become a late craze throughout the system, and it's bothersome. You've seen it in terms of discipline, et cetera. But I think Mike and Matt's back there in the back, and they're a great team with us. The one thing that I like, and I'll say this very clearly, as much as they hate to admit it, Mike and Mike have become pretty good friends.
Well, we were good before.
But they become pretty good friends. They like to jab each other all day long. I probably stir it up some. Who's the most favorite one of us? But the bottom line is, the threat emergencies, I've seen some things happen that we would not have been able to do as quickly because of their presence. So guys, can you share some of the thoughts of some things that have happened in the threat emergencies and your contacts with Charleston, those kind of things?
It's kind of twofold on that, because we both, coming from our other jobs, we have contacts throughout the state, from federal level all the way down to municipalities. So we work hand in hand with that. Mike, because we all know majority of troopers retire, they get a state job. Just a pick on him. He just kidding. But no, it's true. And just building the rapport, not just, we build a rapport with the kids, we build a rapport with the staff members, but we have that rapport with the individuals that can bump us to the front of the line when we need help with stuff. I mean, they do it with everybody, but when you know somebody, you know how it is. It helps a lot. And our Fusion Center, we get emails daily, about one every 5 minutes, of any kind of threats going on and stuff like that. So that's helped from both our experience, especially, I'll be honest, Mike, with everybody down there, they all, that's just the truth, and this benefits us at Fayette County.
Well, and at 10 o'clock at night, from my perspective, because you as a board are expecting the final decision to be made by me as to what do we proceed with this or not. Tim and I are talking, Matt and I are talking at 10 or 11 o'clock at night to determine whether a threat assessment is truly a threat assessment. We see other systems have shut down at times and those kind of things. Not that we're unwilling. I think somebody put on Facebook the other night, well, there's been 2 threats at this particular school because I hear it through the rumor mill. But we determine whether that threat assessment is of any significance. And their contacts at 10 and 11 o'clock at night and getting us information so that we can say, hey, this is not, there's no credibility to what we're seeing in this threat assessment, but it still doesn't mean we use our contacts to put extra forces in there in the morning. Even if it's not credible in our mind, we still take every precaution the next morning, but we don't take it and blow it out of proportion. And I think without them, we would not be able to make as quick decisions. Do you agree with that, Tim?
Absolutely.
And Matt? I think that's, from my perspective, I feel like I'm making a better decision because of the information that the 2 of these gentlemen are feeding me on a regular basis and feeding Tim and Matt. Because I'm dependent on Tim and Matt. And, my explanation was, I was a wannabe law enforcement officer when I made those decisions prior to their arrival. I don't have to be a wannabe. They give me the information from a law enforcement officer standpoint and feed that information to us because they take that job seriously in the middle of the night or at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning. We can depend on them to get us the information they need. And
that's been a big plus on my standpoint, I think. I think probably Tim and Matt, or when we're running an emergency during the day, I think they have become competitive, I'll say this because they won't say this out loud, competitive investigators. Okay? When we dealt with the threat emergency, determined the effects of, I won't go into details, but one that you'll deal with later tonight, but then one you're going to deal with the next meeting. To be very honest with you, Mike was at a particular school and the principal called and said, I don't think we'll be able, it's like finding a needle in a haystack.
That's that, Mike.
Mike Dickerson. And Mike Dickerson said, can I have a chance, Mr. O? Can I get a chance to do this? I said, yeah, go for it. So you can get it. Called me back in 25 minutes and I had the answer.
Yeah.
He knew where to go to, he knew what to do, he knew where to go find that answer, so we had it. Now, what caused that to happen, Mr. Fridley then became very competitive, Mike did, on another one that had to do with camera shots and pulling and getting what we needed, and called me back and they had an answer. So we can look at the general public and say, hey, we're pinpointing these problems and we're not letting them go on. And from my standpoint, I don't think the board always realizes that. I'm not going into much detail because I'm not trying to disclose something to the general public. But the bottom line is, when I'm bringing something before you for action on the part of the board, you want to know there's some credible evidence here. And I think that competitive nature, you know, because I told Mike, I said, I told Mike Dickerson, make sure you call Mike Fridley and tell him you got the answer quicker.
No,
And then
I did not.
then Mike Fridley called me to say, Gary, I got the answer, this one, it's done. It's closed. I think he ran out there 5 times, so you can make sure you had the answer first. So,
I appreciate the pat on the back there, but I don't look at it like that. I don't think I could do this job without Mike, and I'd like to think that he could do this job without me, because we depend on each other a lot. You were talking about late at night, there's been multiple times where he was sheriff, and the deputies work all these events around here, the incident we had at Oak Hill. You know, I knew nothing about it, but when he has those contacts, he called me, he's like, hey, we had this happen, he's keeping me up on stuff that's going on as well, so, I mean, it's a joint. It's a total joint.
We're a lot alike.
It's not me or him, it's us, so.
It is.
that's great, that's great. It's a pleasure working with both of them, and I gotta say that out loud.
All right. Very good. Well, still lots to do, right?
Yes, sir, a lot more.
And I know I got a email early this week, maybe into last week, that was asking, what are you guys doing up there on security in Fayette County, from a fellow president down in Mason County. So we were able to share some of the things that we've got going on.
What roles you guys play. The thing that they've done this week or starting to do, some of the things, you know, we had Tim has plenty of responsibilities other than supervising safety, which he still does a great job of. But to take all the time with the reports and those kind of things to make sure things are done, they have started to put the pressure on the principals. We need this, guys. Make sure we get this. I need to have your up-to-date report on this, what we got going on down here. You know, they're there to give assistance to Tim. And what we said, we weren't just paying them to do that kind of job. They're beginning to assume some of the paperwork responsibilities with the state and getting familiar with that. And to me, that's really important. And that I only knew by accident, because one of the principals thought Mike was calling because of something I needed. And he said, no, I don't even know what Gary needs. It's something that I need. I need you to have these reports to me. So that, I mean, that was a positive thing to begin to see that role that we're beginning to play into. And they've also filled in for pro officers when pro officers aren't there. They keep in touch with them. So our schools really feel like they've got support all the time.
Good. Any questions or thoughts, board members?
Yeah, I do, you please, Mr. President. Mike and Mike, and also our other officers we have in our schools, or do you feel your presence? I know the safety part, and on top of that, I've heard great things about that, and that's great. But do you feel your presence in a way has impacted the overall discipline of students in the schools you serve? I mean, your presence with them, do you feel they think twice before they commit some kind of small disciplinary issue?
100%.
I'd have to think you would.
I think that you're still going to have, when you're dealing with young kids, they're still going to make poor decisions at times. So, I mean, you're still going to have a little issue here or there, but I mean, one thing that pops into my mind, I know when we first started going to Meadow Bridge, and it doesn't sound like a big deal, but these kids wearing their hoods in the school, which causes a problem with our camera system because we can't identify certain situations if we would need to. So we had a couple students at Meadow Bridge that, we were, first day or so, Mike was on them about taking their hoods, and now it's like we don't see that anymore. And we had to address it with another school, and they told the kids, hey, you can't be doing it. And once it was explained to them why they can't be wearing them, because it forbid something would happen, and we use the fantastic camera system we have to try to identify someone, we can't do it because those hoods are just blocking their faces and stuff. So
Now, do you all work, or do you in communication with the other pro officers in wherever, other school, Oak Hill, wherever? Or are you, 'cause, your all's training, is pretty, high up over the state police, and Mike being the sheriff for several years. You have a lot of experiences. Are you sharing those with our other officers?
We go back to one, the biggest thing that Mike and I have done at Meadow Bridge and the school that we're at majority of the time, not counting Oak Hill, we go to Oak Hill, we go to these schools, but we build a rapport with these kids.
Yep.
And that's the biggest thing.
Big time.
Like Mike was saying, fist pumping, high five and stuff. Now they start to trust us, and we tell them, come to us if you got a problem. So, because we don't know what happens outside that wall, but
Right.
we try to be that good leader. So to answer that question, I think we have made a difference on that stuff.
and I think with the rapport that we build with them, and they like us, they don't want to let us down,
Right.
per se.
That's
So,
big.
But
How
then,
about the other officers in the
going
other
back
schools?
going back to your second question, Coach, I know we have a group text of all the pros and us two in it. So if they have a problem at school, they will reach out, being Rachel, being Luther Chris over at Fayetteville, being Corey over at Oak Hill, they will reach out to us, and vice versa. They will let us, they let us know when if Mike's week up running the schools, they will let him know, hey, we'll put in our group text, I'm taking a day off, can you cover? We cover. Or if they have a situation happen, they will contact us, say, can you all come and help, or whatever it might be. So yes, we work good together, but I'm telling you, you're very blessed, the ones that you have in the county that are law enforcement, because they are good at their job, and they really, and when you have one school, you can build that rapport, and the kids get to know them.
Coach, can I interject from an outside standpoint, because this was interesting? About probably the first week they started, Jess McMullen, who was upcoming sheriff probably, looks that way. Jess talked to me, goes, I think we really need to get your two men together with all the pro officers and make sure that we don't cross any lines and do what we need to do. Well, we kind of mentioned it to each other, but then we both got busy. Last week, when we were I didn't hear another problem. Last week when I was at the advisory council dinner, and Jess was there, I said, Jess, how do you feel now? Because Tim and I were busy with fields and construction and trying to get schools open and instruction in the schools. I go, Jess, we'll get something set up in the next. He said, Gary, there's no need to. There couldn't have been a better coordinated effort. Those guys put it together with each other. He said, we're not having one single difficulty with them working together as a team. And to me, that was and that came directly from Jess. Because, a lot of his officers are the pro officers. I think you guys have a good relationship with Luther and Jack. And I want to share with the board, just so that you're aware, because Mike and Mike came to me today, and if they're not at Meadow Bridge every day right now, we're waiting for Valley to obtain a new officer. The one that was there left, and Mike mentioned about going down to Valley a couple days a week to try to work with her. We're trying to spread our resources as much as we can, so we cover the entire county. So if they're not someplace one all day, it's trying to help down there to make sure they're effective in terms of what they're doing. So Coach Groom.
Oh, I talked to Mike.
Yeah, and I think that discussion they had on and off with me the last couple of days, and with Tim and with Matt, because Tim and Matt have done more day-to-day conversations, but I do talk to these guys every day. But more day-to-day conversations with them, and they pretty much run everything through Tim in terms of schedules and changes, which I do appreciate. Tim's done a good job with that.
Hearing good things, that's great.
Thank you guys very
Yep,
much.
thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Again,
And
thank
we
you all
hope
for
to,
giving us a chance.
and hope to have you back periodically to share what's going on.
I think it's a good idea.
Doing great things, guys, really. Y'all.
Hey,
One last thing.
Thank you guys.
As far as our other officers, I know they're all well-trained, but when we have like in-service during a day in our state.
They already
teachers,
have.
do you all do in-service with each other?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
We was in the class just
We
last
just had a conference last week that we were at.
Thank you, Mr. President.
And they get ready to do, got a little bit behind where some stuff happened. We do active training, active shooter training together and all that. Mike's certified and all that stuff too, so that helps.
And I want to continue to keep my certification. I've already talked to Mr. Hogue and Mr. Payne about that for my firearms instruction and all of my law certifications. So I'll be attending my in-service for those. So.
And working with people, like Mike's worked with Park Sporting Goods on testing our Evolve systems, and getting different weapons and bringing them up and running them through, just different things that we've done that we would have never done before.
Very good. All right. Well, Tim, thank you, and I think you've got more for us, right?
Yes, I do.
Gentlemen, you're allowed to leave, both y'all. You put long days in.
I feel pretty safe right now, though.
I had to listen to them. They have to stay and listen.
It is one of the safest environments.
Tim, that's
I've
kind of
built.
harsh. I mean, I'm trying to be nicer to them.
I do want to add a couple of things, though. You know, coming from their background in law enforcement, working in a school was a little bit different. And then occasionally they'll call and ask me a question. Now, why is it that we do this? Why is it that we do that? You know, so sometimes we just have to have those school discussions, you know. And I can tell you, neither one of them are shy about picking up the phone and giving me a call. So, and I appreciate that very much. We're going to talk a little bit about facilities right now. And just a little bit of an update about where we are. On top, there's just a rendering of the entrance to the new Midland Trail. I don't know, what are we calling it? Midland Trail Elementary School, Midland Trail Pre-K through 5 School. We probably need to settle on a name one of these days. Okay, but anyway, I think it's a very attractive looking school. The next page gives you some updates. And the last 2 pages talk about some schedules and the projected budget for the new Midland Trail Elementary School. But let's talk about Meadow Bridge just a little bit, okay? So Meadow Bridge, give you just an idea of where we are. We are in the home stretch at Meadow Bridge. I'm excited. I cannot wait for this school to be finished. I can't wait for our students to be in it, our teachers to be in it, and for us to see it finished. So it's really nice going down there and watching the drywall go up and the concrete go down, and you know, just all the different things. You don't see sky anymore when you walk through the building. There's a roof on it, and you know, they're putting the HVAC units on there. But I've got a little bit of a schedule there for you. I asked Bryson Murphy, the project superintendent, to give me just a quick little breakdown of where we are instead of trying to read that whole big construction schedule. But basically, we'll be ready to be in that building in February. Now, furniture is scheduled to be delivered in February. You can look at the schedule there and you can see what we have left to finish. Furniture is ready to be delivered in February. We can get the furniture in, get it set up, and get the classroom set up. And then I would like teachers to have some time to get into their rooms and get used to their spaces a little bit. So, you know, we have to look and see, you know, exactly how timing works. If we can get them in before spring break, great. If we can get them in right after spring break, great. You know, but you know, we're looking at that. We want to definitely get them in there sooner rather than later.
We'll probably ask for a couple remote days.
We probably will need a couple of remote days, yes, to get that transition done. I'll have my guys down there helping move things and things like that. But you know, we've been talking to administrators about saying no. When it's like, can I take that? No, you may not take that with you. You know, we're going to have brand new things and brand new nice things. So it's a good time to get rid of some things. But anyway, so looking at the schedule there for Meadow Bridge. Any questions about the schedule for Meadow Bridge, or any questions at Meadow Bridge in general?
That'll complete, once this is done, that completes the whole complex.
Yes.
And when we tear down the old building,
Demolition of the old
Well,
building.
that will happen this summer.
okay.
Okay, so, of course, one's already down, you know, the high school, the old
Yeah.
high school is gone. And then we'll do the elementary school. We're still trying to decide if we're gonna be able to keep part of that building, and if it's gonna make sense to do that. You know, they have a gym and a kitchen that is separate. It has separate utilities and things like that. It would be really nice to be able to keep that if we can, if it makes sense, you know, financially.
What will be the reasoning for rationale for keeping
We're
it?
putting regular baskets
It's-
in there, making a practice, Jim. Let's be
It's
honest.
just it's a place to use for a little bit of, you know,
Okay.
shooting practice and things like
Would it
that.
be worked, upgraded, I mean,
Don't need a lot of work to it.
and because we're going to have two new, I mean, the building is going to be beautiful, they're sitting there. They have an old structure.
Well,
We'll have to
we're gonna,
repaint it.
that's one of the things, that's what we're looking at.
We
If
wanna
we
look at
can
the
make,
cost.
if we can make the facade, look like the rest of the campus, if we can do that, then then we will. We're gonna look at the, the price and what it's gonna look like and, all those things. I don't wanna just have well, I'm gonna
Agreed.
be nice. I'm
No,
not gonna
I
say,
agree.
I don't want to have just, a shack sitting there. But
Absolutely.
I do want to have something nice. If we can make it look nice, we can make it look like it's a cohesive part of the campus and make it useful for the students and the staff and the community, then I say let's keep it.
Okay.
If it makes sense financially.
When do you
Okay.
think you'll be able to make that recommendation?
Well, we're hoping to make that recommendation in December at the
We've been
latest.
asking for a while, haven't we?
We have. The gentleman that is responsible for that, and he's had some health issues and, one thing or another. So we're hoping that we're back on track and ready to do that by December.
Okay.
So, and that'll be a good time. That'll be a good time. So, any other questions about Meadow Bridge? Okay. So Midland Trail Elementary School, you can see the schedule there. They are actually today they were on campus, starting to do some geotechnical surveying, digging some holes and looking at, what it's going to be like. So when we get that foundation going for that building. They expect to have all of the construction documents complete by November 14th and in the hands of the Department of Ed, the SBA, and the Fire Marshal by November 15th. Now, we've already had a preliminary meeting with the West Virginia Department of Education and the School Building Authority. We had it here in this room about 2 weeks ago. We went through a lot of different things. They had a lot of questions about things, and McKinley had a lot of answers. And I had questions about things. So we were able to hammer out a lot of that. The bid notice is going to go out November 20th. All the bidding documents, November 25th, will be ready. We will have a pre-bid meeting on December 17th. We will open bids on January 23rd, sign a contract you all will approve, and then sign a contract in February. And then a little over a year later, we'll have a school. So it's an ambitious construction plan, but it has to be. This has been a long time coming for these students at Ansted and Divide, and you all know that. And we need them in this building.
Tim, are you going to go over the price right now?
I am.
Okay. And then I want to talk to the board about something that you and I will be involved
Okay.
with. Go ahead.
Okay, yep. So while I'm talking about Midland Trail Pre-K through 5 school, this handout has a little bit of that schedule as well. I've kind of gone over that already, but that's just for your reference. This second page, though, is the budget, is the proposed budget. And if you look, there's a lot of red. So, and if we know anything about budgets, we know that red is not necessarily where we want to be, but it's not necessarily as bad as it looks either. Basically, the bottom line is this. Looking at the proposed construction costs, we're looking at a budget including contingencies of about a little over $1 million. We're looking at it being over budget by about $2.8 million. Now, having said that, $2.8 million, if you look at that compared to Meadow Bridge, that's nothing, right? But still, it is not nothing. It's $2.8 million. That's a big deal, okay? There are some things we could do to reduce that cost, but here's the thing, and Mr. Hogan and I have talked about this, and we've talked about this with Skanska, we've talked about this with McKinley, and we've looked at it ourselves. We've talked to other superintendents and what they've been able to do. So there have been a lot of projects that have been awarded, a lot of school projects that have been awarded recently around the state. And a lot of those projects are coming in at budget, just over budget, or just under budget. So we
got hope, we got to pray.
We are very hopeful because we do have a healthy budget for this school. The SBA changed their formula. They provided more funding per square foot for these buildings. They realized that their previous funding formula was out of date. They've updated that. We got more money to build the same school than what we were looking at a couple of years ago. So we're feeling pretty confident about that. But we also have some ideas of a couple things that we could possibly do. We don't want to do that. We don't want to shortchange this community at all. We don't want to shortchange the curriculum space, the learning space in any way. We don't want to do that. So, I'm sorry, yes, Gary.
Okay. I want the board to understand this will be the last, what I would consider major, now we'll be doing projects all the time, that never ends. But the last major project that we're doing in major construction under the current plan.
Under the current plan.
And
Correct.
so, here's what I don't want to say to the board. I want to say to the board, I think it's important that we look at that and take that into consideration. You know, there are some new state policies concerning the amount of overage that you can accept, or the amount of bid adjustments you can accept, if you remember that. Tim and I are going to do some research to make sure we're in compliance with state law.
Right.
But we will get together with you maybe the second week of November. We want to talk to Jacob and Jason in particular about making sure during that meeting, we may be going to executive session to select the total. Remember that you give the authority to select the total. How we can adjust up and down on what they call, it's about managing the budget.
Right.
And budget reductions or budget improvements, and what your expectations are as a board in terms of that acceptance, okay? So that when we open bids, we have some idea of where we're at.
Right.
So that's was a new piece of state law, piece of state legislation. We'll make sure we follow that pathway the way they have intended it to.
And whether we can accept
Whether we
those
can
bids
accept or
have to
whether we
reject
can't
them.
accept.
Right.
You know, so I think it's really important. Tim asked me today if I was comfortable with sharing this design and development estimate, and I said it couldn't be more perfect timing. Tim, I think it's important that the board understand there are some factors. Paul is back there. Don't throw anything at me now, Paul.
Hearing that red number.
A red number, I hear you. I guess what I'm saying to you as a board, we really don't want to forget this, because what my intention, and I don't have a problem saying this out loud, but the board has to give me permission, is for us to begin to look at bond committees come next spring and fall, so we're prepped for the next year to begin to take on what we consider things that we'd like to have. But I don't want to shortchange Midland Trail Elementary School because we're still looking at the wish list versus doing what we need to for the kids in that area who've been the most patient of all. And I say that very clearly. Anstead and Divide has been the most patient of all. I mean, they've dealt with it, and we've dealt with a little bit of a up and down with it, but on a personal basis, I feel that way. I don't know if you feel that way, Tim. but
Absolutely. I
I feel that way. They have hung in there with us, even though sometimes they've been frustrated, but they hung in there with us when we had overages and got to where we got to. So I think we're at a point that we can sit down and try to figure out a plan and move it forward. So as a board, I want you to know, I'm not, when Tim and I talked about it today, Tim goes, because he always, I couldn't have a better director of operations. And I mean that sincerely. I'll say that out loud repeatedly, Tim.
Amen.
You do an outstanding job of communicating with me. We talk a lot every day, you know, and I don't want that to go unsaid. Thank you, Tim.
No, you're welcome. Thank you. And he said we talk a lot every day. That's all I'm going to say.
Amen, I understand that.
Hey, Mr. Hogue, couldn't let it go, sorry.
I told you, my son at a recent board meeting, he went a little longer, and they told me you were
That
supposed,
was a good one.
he said it's a family trait.
We'll pray for you, Mr. Payne.
Well, and pray for a very mild winter. Anstead's heating situation is tenuous,
Oh, my goodness.
okay? Yes. You understand, Mr. Gray?
Yes.
You know, so
Let me
it's
ask the question
tenuous,
again,
so.
wait, later.
What,
Tim, you said 2.8 overreach in this project, possibly,
Yes.
possibly, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what is causing that? Is it good, or what we expect the cost of materials and so
Yes.
forth?
Yes,
Or
it's,
labor, or
it's
what?
actually construction. Most of it is construction costs. Okay? So, there are, and you can see, there are some kinds of, they call them soft costs and things like that, but there are just some things that are over a little bit, a few $1,000s, just in like consulting type fees, either architectural fees or engineering fees or, you know, things like that. But if you look at the project costs, that's kind of in the middle there. you can see there's a lot of red numbers there, you know. You can see that those are over a lot. And then there are some soft costs too that are over.
Here's the other part. Guys, from my standpoint, I'm gonna go back to my predecessor when he gave an explanation, but I think this puts it in terms of, you know, it's a difference between building an Econo Lodge and building a Holiday Inn or a Hampton Inn. We're not building Ritz-Carlton.
No.
But at the same time, we are taking and building a really high-quality project. And Tim and I talked last week about cost and the kind of exterior block we use.
Right.
Versus using regular block that gives it a little better look. We don't want something that just,
We don't want to throw up a box.
we're only gonna do this
Right.
Right.
once every 40
Right.
years. I could cheapskate everything, but then we're gonna give them.
This is the only, you know, knock on wood, this is the only elementary school that I'm going to get to help supervise, you know, the construction of in that area. This is the only time I'm going to get to do that. It needs to be done right. So, and that's the way I feel about every project we do. So, but anyway, so having said all of that, we are looking at being over budget a little bit to begin with, but it seems like we are always looking at being over budget a little bit to begin with. So, and we will do everything we can to keep it, you know, within budget. And I think, you know, as Mr. Hoag was saying, that when we meet in November to talk about facilities, we need to look to see where we are with the budget and what our commitment level, you know, what we feel comfortable doing there. And so we need to have lots of discussions about that. So,
And I'll have a number from Paula, how
And
much she's comfortable with.
exactly.
And I'll bring her, what's that strawberry lemonade you're drinking? When I go into her office, I'll bring her strawberberry lemonade.
Bribery will get you everywhere.
Anyway, Midland Trail Elementary School, or Midland Trail Pre-K through 5, any further questions on that project?
So our thought is then, as we start the 26-27 school year, that we'll have them.
They'll be in the building. Yes, sir. Yeah, that's why we want substantial completion in June. I wanted it in May. So they told me I wasn't being realistic, and I told them I didn't care. So they might have to be more realistic than I do. I have that luxury of, you know, of being, you know, of dreaming just a little bit about it. But on the other hand, we do have to be realistic. But I want it done so that we have the summer to get ready for kids.
Right.
A lot of you remember opening the doors to New River Primary School and Oak Hill Middle School while we're still waiting for the paint to dry. You know, there were still things to do, and there were still things to do after they moved in. We made it, you know, but, you know, and again, there wasn't an option. And I feel like there's not really an option in this case either. We need to be in that building by that time. So, but let's give ourselves a little bit of a buffer, okay? Midland Trail High School baseball and softball field, the progress update there. We are going to have a pre-bid meeting on Thursday at 10 o'clock at Midland Trail High School. We have a lot of interest from around the state from various excavation companies, local. We have several local companies that are interested, and some companies from the northern part of the state, and a couple from out of state who have contacted me. I don't know if they'll actually show up on Thursday, but there's a lot of interest, a lot of questions
We
anyway.
hope we can drive that
So
cost down.
I'm hoping that we have 20 companies show up and we can drive that cost down. So,
You're gonna pick.
that's
the
what I'm
best-
hoping.
We're not gonna shortchange them without getting a company that's top notch. We'll get a
We're-
top notch
Co-
company.
co-
This is open bid.
It's open
Okay?
bid,
It's open bid.
but the companies
There are
will be,
so
they have to
many
meet criteria.
There are so many criteria they have to meet. They have to have done this work in the past as well. That's one of the
I'm
criteria.
gonna say you'll be able to get.
Yeah,
some-
we want to see their body of work. Okay?
And they have to be able to move dirt at so much speed.
Yes.
Per,
Yes.
and so many
And
trucks a day.
They have to hit our deadlines, and as you can see, there are deadlines on here.
Is this pre-bid only for the excavation?
No,
piece
it's for
of it?
all of it.
Okay.
It's for all of it.
Okay.
Yep. Bids are due on Friday, November 1st. That's not a big turnaround time, but they've had a lot of time. The documents have been available to them. They've asked for documents. We've supplied them with documents. They've had a lot of information
advertise that?
prior to,
Where did you advertise?
through email, in the newspaper, and on our website. Okay.
Our website's become.
And a lot of word of mouth, too.
the-
And yes, so as a matter of fact, yes, exactly. So the newspaper, website, and word of mouth. So people ask me, I send them the link.
You know, Anna's not here, but she worked out that website with the state, and I like that website best of all, and I'll tell you why. Because all your specs are on there. Whereas usually they had to call for specs, and we had to email specs to them and those kind of things.
Yeah, or they weren't available through us. They had to go to
The
McKinley, the
architect-
architecture,
the
or in this
architects
case, McKinley.
And then they wanted to charge for the specs, when they got the specs, whereas.
Yeah, we're
It's
not
wide
gonna tell
open.
McKinley that we're not charging.
Yeah,
We're
I
just
know,
giving
but-
them to them.
But we're wide
So,
open with those specs.
Yes, if they want them, they can have them.
And interesting, I didn't even share this with you, Tim. For example, you asked a question concerning reputable firms. Hellas, in terms of Seamus, talked to me last week, Seamus Petroselli, I forgot to tell you that one day, because when he was talking about coming
Sure.
down, you and I talked the next
Sure.
day.
Yes.
Seamus indicated to me from Hellas, for example, which has been our major contractor on our fields, who I don't think we're disappointed with at all. Seamus indicated to me they probably will not touch the bulk work, because that's not their expertise. They'd have to hire a subcontractor anyway for the bulk work, which means they're gonna charge you a little higher for that bulk work. But their expertise comes in field preparation and completion.
Right.
So they probably will bid on that part of the phase, those phases. So when you look at it, it's kind of, that was Jim's idea, that he felt, Jim Sire felt like that was the best move to keep cost at a manageable level, but to also get completion at a manageable level.
So get a company in that can move dirt quickly. There's a couple of companies we've talked about, or talked with, and they have some great ideas about being able to do that. So I'm excited about that whole process.
So, Tim, what you showed, the only thing worries, I guess, ease my thought process, maybe I'm just not
Yes.
familiar how the bidding process works. But as you look at the companies, and a company comes in the lowest bid, does that mean they get the bid?
If they meet all the
If they
specs.
meet, right, they have to meet the requirements.
Okay,
So
what do you
even,
meet the requirements?
so to even bid on the project, they have to have been involved in building at least 5 other athletic fields.
So if they don't
Okay.
meet that criteria, you tell,
They're not
you
gonna
just bid,
bid.
you tell them no.
They're not gonna bid,
Okay,
no.
very good.
Okay. Yeah, because
Thank you.
we had a gentleman ask, he said, do I have to have that? And it's like, yes, that's a requirement. You have to have built
Sure.
athletic fields in order to build this. This can't be your first athletic field. We're not gonna be somebody's practice.
We're not experimenting.
You know, right, exactly.
That may even upset a local person or two that's never done that, but sorry.
Yes.
Hey,
Too bad.
I hate that, but like you all said, but still at the same time, we gotta have a quality product.
Yes.
Jim sent those specs pretty strictly, did he not?
Yes.
Tim, in
Oh,
my
yes.
mind? Because he went over it with Tim and I, but those specs were sent pretty.
And then he'll be there to explain it all on Thursday as well. Pre-bid, bids are due November 1st, scheduled to break ground in December. The bulk grading is supposed to be complete April 15th with the substantial completion by June 15th. We want that first seeding on the actual fields done in May so that we have a growing season in the spring, early summer. And then we want the fields basically done by September so that we have the fields I'm talking about, not all of the peripheral things on the fields. You know, the fencing and the dugouts and all that stuff can still be working on, but I want the fields done so we have another growing season in the fall. And then the fields actually completed all the sidewalks, fencing, dugouts, restrooms, concession stands, press boxes, lights, everything. Everything done, PA systems, I'm sure I'm missing something, scoreboards, everything completed by, basically by Thanksgiving, so that March 1st, we're ready to play ball. Okay? Questions about that process?
And not a question to you,
Yes.
Tim, on the building, but going back to the superintendent, we just have to make sure we're communicating that we're gonna miss a season
Yes.
there. right?
Yes.
I
Here's
don't want any secrets. I want people to know.
I was
And I know
talking-
that Mr. Hoag and I have talked about that very much, and I've talked about that with the principal, because, you know, that's who I have my discussions with over there, and the other administrators there too. But I know Mr. Hoag and I have talked about that, and Mr. Hoag and I are very supportive of helping them, you know, with what they need to do. If they need to play somewhere else, then if that's a municipality of some kind, a municipal park of some kind, a municipal field of some kind, and if we need to help them in some way, whether that's, you know, helping get some things straightened out like we did down at Cannleton, you know, last year with the softball field for the middle school team up there, you know, physically sending some people down there to help with that, great, we'll do that. And I know Mr. Hoag has said that if they need some money for one thing or another, and I'll let you talk, Mr. Hoag. I can't believe I talked over you. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's okay, nothing wrong with that at all.
Do you like
I
that,
did
Coach?
talk-
You see how I did that, Coach?
I did talk I talked on Saturday to the city manager here in Fayetteville, Matt Dietrich. I talked to him when I was out on Bridge Day. Him and his wife were down there having their buses, and I said, Matt, you hadn't gotten back to me on what Oak Hill could do. And then, is Maggie back in here?
She's right there.
Where's Maggie at? Hey, Mag?
I'm right here.
You're a city council member in Anstead, and I know that we had told Candace, in particular, Candace Young, that anything we need to do, we said we would provide materials and we would pay a rental fee to any of those communities that would be willing to take us on and needed materials or a rental fee to cover the cost of maybe some upgrades they might need. Might be a perfect opportunity for us to assist those communities. At the same time, we said that we would do the same thing down at Valley, because we have a middle school there. It's gonna help us with our middle schools afterwards, okay? But they have to take that responsibility, because we don't own the fields, if you understand what I'm saying.
Have you talked to anybody down there?
I don't know, Tim, we talked to,
Anybody?
and yeah, we did tell the principals that, but
Yes. I've had some preliminary discussions with Ann. We are always talking about something,
Okay.
Ann and I. And one of those things that comes up is the field.
that
Of
Cannleton
of
Hollow field in
What about
particular.
the one up at Boomer for the baseball?
Oh, we
Boo-
lease that field.
We lease that, and we already have done that stuff when they've asked us to.
Are we gonna put a scoreboard up there?
We hadn't planned on that.
They need a scoreboard back.
Yeah.
For
We,
baseball.
right, we don't own that field, so, I mean.
We would pay
that-
a
if that's-
leasing fee so they could put it up. That's what
Yeah.
we want to be careful of.
Yeah, we
You
have-
understand what I'm saying?
Right.
That we
Right.
don't go in there and put something up as much as we're willing to pay a leasing fee.
Oh, okay.
Because then we're not taking county monies and putting them on somebody else's property. We're
Right.
Paying county monies for a legitimate purpose.
Right.
I think that, Tim, I'm gonna ask you to send that Midland Trail High School baseball and softball field progress update, now that we've given it to the board. Send that to Richard, because they
Sure.
need to get that information out. Richard and I had that discussion today. I had the discussion with Mark this morning too, but to see where they were at progress-wise with scheduling. And Mark said they were still working on their scheduling. They were still working, I think Drew Weiss is coaching baseball over there. Drew was working, trying to get a field that they could play baseball on so that they didn't have to play games away. As far as we're concerned, we can't do all that for them, but at the same time, we are opening that door wide open. And I have reached out just to say, Fayette County Schools does not want to cheapskate this, and, because what we're gonna end up with in the end is even a better situation. If we fix that field down at Anstead, and we're busy up there with a high school game, and we have the Anstead field fixed up, we can use it for middle school stuff. If we do the same thing over here in Fayetteville, once we abandon it for Midland Trail's gonna have their fields, we always have nicer fields over here in Fayetteville that we use for Fayetteville Middle. That's why we want to do the same thing for the Valley, because honestly, we have hodgepodge a little bit. We can't give the middle school quite the quality we give the high school. I wish we could, but it's just about prioritizing expenses for varsity and otherwise. But at the same time, we don't want to hodgepodge that and not give them a solution. So if you send that to Richard and tell him to make sure that that
Absolutely.
gets publicly sent out so that everybody knows completion schedules and times and everything, because yes, they are beginning to ask more questions, and I did receive that in the last day or so, and that was part of the reason I had the discussion today, was I don't want a communication breakdown. Really, the school needs to communicate that.
Right.
Because they have been in those meetings, and, you know, we're publicly out here on a broadcast. One of the things that was said on the meetings, and I'll have to be very honest with you, we could rush this job. Number one, it would never be ready by spring anyway. But we could rush it and have it ready by maybe summer, but we wouldn't have a growing season in there, we wouldn't put the quality in. We want what you would see on a professional grass field. If we're spending the millions of dollars that we're spending on these projects, we don't want them to be done halfway. We want the end result to be a good result. I think the public needs to know that. It's because we're making a choice. If it's a sacrifice this spring, I know we'll deal, and it's kind of like as we dealt with everything, I know we'll deal with feelings that, my child's a senior this year and they didn't get to play on that field. But we dealt with the same thing as we dealt with at Oak Hill, and we dealt with tracks. We dealt with the same thing at Midland Trail. We didn't have a track for several years over at Oak Hill because we had to wait till we got the funding for the next project. As much as we like to, we have a vision for the future. I feel terrible if somebody's child, they would prefer to have that. I wish we could do it with a click of a finger and say, we're going to get this done, but that's not possible.
No, and I think that, again, just making sure we communicate and there's no surprises.
Right.
That folks know.
I think they
This
need
is-
to know that schedule,
Right.
and they're able to see why.
Right. So, all right.
The last, anything else on the fields at Midland Trail High School? The last two things are the two tracks, the track at Midland Trail High School, that I'm still working with Hellas on that. So, there's a lot of, well, they did this and they did that and they did, and I'm like, it doesn't really matter. I want my track to look
Tim,
nice.
refresh my memory, our memory, maybe it's just me. What is the surface of the track at Midland Trail and Oak Hill? What is the surface of those
So
tracks made
the
up of?
track at Midland Trail is an asphalt track.
Okay.
And right now, it has an asphalt sealer.
I said
Okay.
something's been
That's-
slippery or something.
It's been sealed, yes. It's a little bit slippery in spots, and it can't be that way. So I'm not happy about that. And talking with the people from Hellas and talking with our people at McKinley, talking with Jim Sauer, and we have a solution, and we feel confident that Hellas sees that solution as well. I don't really want to get into that too much until, if that's okay, until actually we do it, but I think we're all going to be very pleased with that. And once we get to that, I'll tell everybody what it is, okay?
How about the Oak Hill surface? What is
So the
it?
Oak Hill surface is a composite surface. It's a lot of rubber. Okay, basically, what they did was they took rubber and glue and melted it and paved the track. And then they went through and put what they call their SBR finish, so it's a composite. They put that on top of it, 2 coats of that, and then they'll do an overspray of 2 coats on top of that, and that'll just kind of hold everything together. And then once they do that, which they should finish, and that's one of the last things I was going to talk about, so I'll just go right into that. They should finish that Tuesday, weather permitting, all things being equal when it comes to the weather. So that process requires them to put plastic on the fence, put plastic on the field several feet out, because when they spray that, they have to spray the exchange zones, which they went with a 2-color system. They went with the red exchange zones and the black track. So they have to spray the exchange zones twice. Each process takes about 12 hours because you've got to spray it, which takes a long time, and then you've got to let it cure. The curing process is one of the shorter, but it takes a while to put it on there. And then they have to wait for it to set up, and then they have to cover all the red, and then they have to spray the black. And there's a lot more black, so that takes a lot longer. That's going to take a couple of extra days to do all the black. And then once they finish with that and it sets up, the track is done except for painting the lines and all the various markers of various kinds that you have on a track for the hurdles and the exchange zones and the 200 start and the 1500 start and all those things that they have.
So that's surface.
And then it'll be-
Hellas guaranteed that for so long?
It's 8 years. It's 8, and then if we have the extra, it's 12.
12 years.
Right, exactly. Just like the field, because we put the shock pad in, it's 12 years. So we're looking at replacing the track surface the same time we replace the turf
Okay.
on the
But
field.
Tim,
Thank you.
correct me, because this was a little unusual with that track surface. because we chose the SBR, which is
Right.
it's a non-permeable surface.
Right.
It sheets the water off. You might have to get them, George mentioned the other day how pleased he was with it when I talked to George. I was in the school and George Smith was out and he's a track coach. George said, I might need some squeegees, Gary. That's the only thing.
Yeah, and he
I
will
might
need some squeegees. He will.
Because it's non-permeable surface. And we said, we'll get some squeegees, George. That's a limited expense. We'll be glad to get some squeegees. But the idea is, if I understand that right, because we went through this, and Joby, please, you chirp in too, because you sat in those meetings. And at 7 or 8 years, if we feel like the funding is available, and that's a decision that will have to be made by
Somebody else.
somebody else. But
That's what I was thinking.
I didn't want to say that out loud, but it's a fact. The bottom line is that system was built for the ability to become sandwiched in 7 or 8 years.
Yes.
And sandwich means you can make it almost at the competitive level you watch at the college level.
Right.
Because it was built, so they just have to pour rubber on top, probably $500,000 or something.
Yes.
They can make that the premium surface that will last another 25 years if they so choose.
They could, yes, somewhere
It's a
along
little,
those lines.
it's a little harder to run on,
Yes.
though.
So the problem with doing that, it does make it a harder surface.
It's harder to run on.
And you're not going to want to practice on that every day. So I was talking with Coach Stowers, Dan Stowers, the other day, and we were talking about that. And one of the things that I said is that I don't want a D1 track because you can't run on a D1 track all day. You know, they're built for speed.
That's all.
And you get on them, you race your event, and you get off. You know, they're not for practicing on and racing on. And we want a track that you can practice on and race on. And it's going to be durable. It's going to last a while. And they're going to give us 12 years out of it. But Mr. Hoke said, that in 8 years, we can go through, if we want to, we can go back in and add another layer if we want to. So there are options. Any other questions about those?
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
updates.
Thank you, Ken.
Great job.
All right, lots of great work going on.
Yes,
for
sir.
sure. Okay, moving to our 2000 series, we've got items 2052 through 2055. I'll entertain a motion to accept those.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Whitlock, thank you, Mr. Groom, and I'll open the floor up for any questions or comments.
I've got one on 2055.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna admit that I'm gonna sound like a bitchy old lady, but, I just can't see us approving fireworks every time we have a football game or a baseball game or I'm just a little leery of Pandora's box here. You know, fireworks, 4th of July is where, you know, Super Bowl. I just kind of feel like, okay, it's like taking your kid to Disney when he's 5, and then what do you do with him when he's 10? You know, I just don't feel like this is appropriate. I think it's expensive. I think it's, even though people volunteer to take care of it, that's, you know, everything's safe, but what if those people are called away on an emergency? I just, you know, how many football games have we got left? One?
One, yes, ma'am.
Okay, you know, one time, but I don't like to subject our neighbors at our schools to this noise. I don't like to subject our veterans and our pets and our older folks to it. I know we had some complaints when we did it at Fayetteville. Maybe not so much at Trail because it's in the wide open spaces out there, but those are just my opinions. I would not vote against one time, but I don't want to see it again.
Is this just for this year?
I'm done.
Just for this,
It'd be 1 year,
just for
this
this
year
year.
only.
They only have one game left.
One game. I agree with
I won't vote
Cindy.
against that, but I
One
am.
game.
Or if they would have a
I am
playoff
not for
game. So
opening up
that's,
a Pandora's box that every,
Can't do the playoff games either.
I think that's right, because that's an
There's restrictions
SSAC
there.
function, you're right.
I think Ms. Whitlock made a good point. You know, make it just, you know, a year-long thing, and, you know, I'm concerned as well, especially your neighbors,
yep.
but it's just 1 year for one game, I say we give it a shot, you know, right now, that's it. That's my opinion.
And I don't know how much it costs or where the money comes from, but there's another situation where I feel like we're spending a lot of time in our schools going out into the community and asking for money. And this to me is setting money on fire, so that's just me. So I'll go with this time, but I won't again.
And that's a good question. Where does the money come from for this?
I can't answer that, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
wanna-
sure it's a
I don't wanna be-
generous donor,
I don't
but
wanna be,
you know,
that's the question we had not asked, am I correct,
I
Tim?
would like to hear.
It's not in the note, in the letter.
We did not ask that question. You know, like, I know where it came from in the other segment, but we didn't really, we didn't really ask that question.
No, and I.
And it is minimal, depending on what sizes
Right.
they go to. It's probably $200 for 2-3 years worth of fireworks. But
Okay, well,
I know, it's a good question to ask. That could
Yeah.
be something else that we add to the list if they come forward in the future.
So we just approve this for this year only,
Yeah, only
correct?
this year only, thank you.
I'm good with that.
all right, any other
Down
questions?
off my soapbox now.
Mr. President, I have a couple. On the dual credit, and I understand the AP and how the credit works there, but on the regular courses that we can offer, do our teachers have to be certified by the college to teach those and get credit?
Yes, they do. It depends, though, on how it's done. Sometimes we have dual credit offerings where a college professor does that via distance learning.
Right.
Okay? Depends on the college professor. We have some out at West Virginia Tech that do that.
Yes, sir.
But then, a lot of, for example, a lot of Mr. Pettit's crew over there, he was able to work with Glenville State to get a lot of them certified so that dual credit classes could be offered in that format. So there are even some, I think, at Oak Hill that have that same format. It just, Glenville was really did a lot more of that work over there. Tech has done some work for us. We have a good relationship with them.
Outside the AP courses, do we have Meadowbridge, Midland Trail, and Oak Hill, are we offering quite a bit of opportunity for dual credits?
Yeah, I think we are. I think that was a movement on our part. I'm not trying to downplay AP courses, because that's a good question. That's
Yeah,
not.
AP, you gotta have a certain school to get it.
Right.
And-
I think what we did was try to look at giving our students a motivation and opportunity to earn credits that they could use later to reduce their personal expenses. And that's really what it came down to. There's always a discussion on the quality and strength of those courses, sometimes. And we worry about that. I've had that discussion internally in the office. We worry about the strength of a course because we want rigor to be in there. We don't want to, overinflate a grade or whatever it may be. The bottom line is, all those things exist, but dual credit seemed like the best opportunity for our kids because they were getting dual credit classes for $75 for a 3-hour credit class, which I can't tell you what the current cost is at a major institution because I haven't had to pay for that for a while, but it's pretty substantial. I see Ms. Shoemate over there, and she's got one at West Virginia Tech now, so she could probably give us that cost. But what's tuition per semester for like 15 hours or whatever? What is it?
If you live there, it's about 12,000.
Okay, but I mean for
I think
the
it's 7.
seven for the
Yeah.
year.
Oh, no, that's a semester, sorry. No, 16,000.
Semester.
No,
Okay.
7,000 semester.
7,000 a semester for the tuition itself.
Mhm.
So you begin to look at what the cost is. You're probably talking somewhere in the category of $1,200 or $1,300 for a credit then, if that's the current cost.
I've talked to parents in other counties as well, and they talk about their children going down to college, out of high school with 24, 20, quite a number of credits. I have my niece right now enrolled at WU. When she went there, she was registered her first semester sophomore.
Number
credits you had.
Here's the interesting part, and I've got to give our principals credit. There's a competitive nature. I was teasing about Mike and Mike being friendly competition for each other. That's positive because that moves the system. I think our principals have become more competitive and Ms. Whitlock, I hate to admit this, I think the fireworks issue was a competitive issue, and I'll just leave it at that. No further said, okay?
Well, I
no further said. I think that was a competitive issue. But at the same time, the idea of the dual credit classes, I think, they kept on reaching out and getting stronger commitments from colleges and universities, which caused the other principals to say, well, if they're going to offer that at their school, because it's a matter of Mr. Gray and myself have talked a lot in our culture and climate about retention of students. And you as a board have honestly looked at that issue. We're in a competitive world with charter schools and with private schools, et cetera. We've got to provide the opportunity for an education where those students can have some value for that education when they graduate from high school. And having 24 credits is a value, because I think, only know it from talking to Mark Gladwell. Jaden, who was one of our Grow Your Own students, is down at Marshall, and I think he had almost a year.
Yeah.
Jaden, they took advantage of all the dual credit opportunities. Jaden had almost a year, and it was very minimal cost to be able to obtain that. I'm talking maybe $750 total for a year's education between our Grow Your Own program opportunities and what he was able to purchase through Glenville State, and he was able to transfer in there. So Jaden got 1 year of college at $750. We've offered that opportunity to everybody. I mean, it's not just because he happens to be one of our administrator sons. I mean, every parent was given the opportunity in a meeting. Am I correct when I say that, Amy? I don't want to be incorrect, because there were parent meetings, et cetera, offered. It's taken advantage of that. It does require, let's be honest, it does require a student that comes home at the end of the day probably to work another 2-3 hours in the evening on college classes. It requires a tremendous commitment, but at the same time, it gives that student a tremendous edge for a year of college. The only thing that sometimes worries me, but I look at the maturity level of the students putting that much effort, I'm going to be on the positive side and say their maturity level's higher, because they're able to really buckle down and have the discipline.
We need to at least give the opportunity.
Right.
The students to
The
have
only
it.
thing that worries me is I might have 20-year-olds entering classrooms as full-time teachers, which is a
So
little
be
young.
it. So be it.
But my bottom line is, I'm looking at the maturity level. If you do that, then you're there.
Ms. Dowell saying that's not a problem.
But I think that that's a reality of what we're possibly looking at in some circumstances.
And one last question on the attendance policy.
Yes.
That's final reading. I mean, on page 4, it talks about encourage in students as a way to encourage school attendance. And one says school will create a tardy policy that sets reasonable preventive measures. What does it mean by reasonable?
Each school, if I may.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I want you to chirp in.
Okay. Each school is responsible for setting their own attendance policy. And they do that within their leadership teams. I mean, typically, it's not just the administrator that does that, and they try to make a reasonable policy that students can meet. So, in our elementary schools right now, we have a lot of all grade levels. We have students that ride the buses to school, and they get to school on time. A lot of the times, most of our issues are has to do with parent drop-off line or students driving to school and not getting to school when they're supposed to get there. So, we encourage students to ride the bus.
Do we see inconsistencies within our county if each school that we have, it developed their own, and one school has a strict policy and one doesn't? I mean, do they have to share those with you, Cynthia?
No, sir, they don't have to share those with me. I don't oversee the principals, but, and I'm not certain, I don't want to speak for Mr. Ho nor Ms. Kincaid Klein. I think that from what I'm hearing, and I know that there's a lot of talk about that, after-school detention, there's quite a bit of after-school detention that's associated with that. After you get to a certain point, it could be lunch detention. It is reasonable. It is
Okay.
very reasonable.
And I think they've communicated with each other. I think they've worked together as a team, reached out to build what I would say they could live with internally, consistency, so that they're not being too loose, but they're not being too, being unreasonable with their expectations.
And
Okay.
the new system where, and I forget the name of it, Mr. Holmes, where students sign in or guests sign in.
The Verkada guest.
Yes. It makes life a lot easier, you know, in knowing who gets there at what time, because it's all computer generated. And so you could say, well, Cynthia didn't get to class till 8:05.
I know we have pinged a lot with our attendance when it comes to the state, and I think we gotta do everything we can to make our attendance policies as stern and strong as we can. I respect reasonable, that's fine, but it needs to be a strong policy, what they're trying to do to send a message.
Right.
And
Here's what I can make as a general statement, and I don't want to get into too much detail because I'm not disclosing a particular situation. I think it's a balance, but I think some of our schools have built in what I would call PBIS incentives, where they have made certain events within the school day or the school year. Everything just isn't a give me that you get to go do this activity. You have to earn the opportunity to do that activity. Whether there's a disagreement, in some people's minds that may be viewed as a punishment, but also what they try to do is use what we consider tools within our setting as an opportunity to provide a really good incentive, a motivation for our kids. And they've communicated that very well. I know in the particular situation I was involved in just about a week and a half ago, that was communicated extremely well, what the responsibilities were on the students' part and what the parents' responsibilities were. It was posted all over Facebook, all over the resources. They were given handouts. It was at one of our schools. Then somebody got upset because they didn't reach the criteria. They had to have that activity. And I've got to give credit to our schools that are trying to take. We have to take sometimes the resources we have to create the opportunities, to create the excitement. That everything's not a gimme. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge. I think we ought to be careful. We don't want to make it unreasonable where everybody loses everything. But I think I've got to give our principals credit. I think they've tried to be very reasonable, but at the same time, set a higher standard. You know, we've talked about grade inflation at points because we haven't set a high standard. That's the same thing with attendance. It's that standard that's set. The other part that I think we still continue to work on, and I'll tell this to the board, and we didn't get the total academic achievement report tonight, but I always want to talk about academic achievement. You don't have academic achievement unless you're at school, and those days at school are 100% meaningful. And I think we're pounding that message stronger and stronger and stronger. If you come to school, everybody's got to be delivering instruction in a meaningful fashion. I don't want to hear a kid go home and say, well, I didn't have to be here today. They didn't do anything. Or keep me home from school because there's nothing going on. And then we have chronic absenteeism because Johnny stayed home from school 15 days this year because he's said there was nothing going on, and mom and dad said, well, as far as I know, they did. Their grades were still A's. That's a problem.
It's a big problem.
So it's a balancing act.
With the state, they want us to be below 20% on the chronic absenteeism. You know, as of yesterday, we were sitting at 20.22%. Now, that's all, as Ms. Kincaid Klein would say, raw data. So
sometimes you just feel like we're begging kids to come to school.
It is.
And
Well, and parents, right?
Yes.
you got to involve the parents, like you just said. The key is the parents being on board.
Yes. And then recently, I mean, today I worked with the high schools in, when you're talking about attendance, and since we're talking about the attendance policy, those students that haven't been in school for, let's say, a year and a half, let's look at our chronic absenteeism. So the state has listened to what the attendance directors are saying, and those students, we now have a couple different avenues that we can go down to, once all the boxes are checked, which involves Child Protective Service, which involves law enforcement, which involves, lots of different things, but we can, remove those students from a school roster, and, it won't, now, it doesn't really answer the question as to what happens with that child, but the school will not get that in.
And that's a question I have, so elaborate a little bit more. If a student, which we've talked about a lot, that student's coming up on some type of penalty, right? Most likely a judicial solution, they make them homeschool, right? So if they do that, are we able to remove those numbers out of our raw absence data?
No, sir, and that has to do with the safety issue and a judicial. So, when I send my referrals from 6th grade on up to the school-based probation officer, that document has to go with that child. If I'm sending it straight to the magistrate office or Judge Lynn's office, that attendance document is a legal document.
Right.
And so we have to have it.
But I guess my question is from the state perspective.
And when they're
if-
going
if
accountability.
If they're leaving us and going to homeschooling because of that,
If
we
they-
still hold that data in our attendance
If they meet
records?
pay, depending upon how long they have been in full-time enrollment
Mhm.
in that school year.
Okay, so let's say they're under, what's our 130 days or?
Yes, 130, if they're there within the 130 days, then yes, it counts against us. If they're, excuse me, below the 130, then it does not. If they are above that, then yes, it's going to count against us.
Okay, so that could fall off if they choose to go homeschool if they're under the 130 days.
Yeah, and I think Ms. Hedrick have tried to be very aggressive from day one with it. I mean, not being mean,
No.
but being aggressive
Right.
with mom and dad and making them understand. I think I hate to use this wording, I think we deal with a societal problem to a certain degree. I think when we look at workforces, we look at everything, we deal with a societal problem where that old school commitment of, hey, tough it out, let's go do it, tough it out, you're okay. I think the other, Miss Dow, the other Hedrick girl, and I deal with that sometimes on a regular basis with employees.
Yes, sir.
And that idea that, if we stay home every time we have a little tweak and a little ill feeling, we wouldn't be at work very much. And I think that we have to curb that. I'm really not worried about today. We're still making progress and moving forward. What I worry about is I see that have accumulated in people and in society and employees. What I worry about is 15, 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a consistent workforce? And that's a worrisome issue.
No.
Well, I mean, you listen to what Ms. Whitlock says about the healthcare profession, and, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I mean, we see that on a daily basis. If you have a family member that needs a doctor, needs a nurse, it's an issue, and it's not just in education, it's, unfortunately, it's everywhere.
It
And,
is. You're absolutely right.
Well, and even the commitment to go on for higher education and to really take on challenges and rigor, that's where I think sometimes run into, like the healthcare profession. People don't want to put that kind of effort forth. That's too much.
And
It's too
people
much.
want to pay for it. Like that's a huge, oh my gosh. How much, I'm trying to think of what I paid a semester when I came here and the dinosaurs on Rome Deer. It was like $7.25 and I was out of state a semester.
You're absolutely right, Cindy.
I was in the state, it was
And now it's
$3,000.
$7.25 a credit.
College education, staying on campus was about $10,000 for 4 years,
Yeah.
which was very, in comparison to today, it's unreal. Maybe it was less than that, Cindy. I lied maybe, but
For their
that's,
kids to live in at WVU because it's cheaper than paying and let roommates pay their home, their mortgage because it's.
All right, any other questions or comments on the 2000 series? Okay. If not, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, our consent calendar, 3000 series, items 3005 through 3008. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Groom.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Christ. And I'll open the floor for questions.
I have a couple, if I may.
Okay.
On the, I see the Oak Hill trip for the choir and theater students, approximately 30. And they have 2 chaperones. And then in the, one for, the, cheer, middle, I think it's middle school cheer, yeah, cheerleaders, Meadowbridge, have 1 chaperone. Are we comfortable with that number, with those number of kids?
That
And
is
having
what-
just those number of chaperones?
That's what we've set for middle school and high school. I think we set that at 15.
Said what?
It's 15 to 1.
So you guys set that?
15 to 1, yeah.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'm never comfortable coaching overnight, to be honest, but
I'm always concerned about the number of people that, you know, you got kids in multiple rooms.
I'm never comfortable. I'm not saying
and it
overnight
worries
to
you,
make
but,
us any of us
well,
comfortable.
that meet the criteria we set. That's good.
All right, any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving to our 4000, our finance series, we've got items 4023 through 4026. Ms. Fridley, anything you want to share with us?
I have nothing unless you guys have questions.
Okay. A lot of money moving
Yeah.
around, so I'll entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Thank you, Coach Ray.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Groom. Any questions for Paula or Mr. Hoag? Hearing none, all in favor signify by aye. Any opposed?
Those numbers made my eyes crawl looking at them.
After
Paul-
5 or 6 pages.
Paula said, Gary, quit coming to my office and spending money. That's what you said. It's your fault too.
Yeah.
All right, moving to personnel. I do have an adjustment here, board members. So, item 5113, we're removing from tonight's agenda. So if you'll strike that out of the agenda,
5113.
5113, yes. So I'll accept a motion for items 5112 through 5124 with the exception of 5113.
So
Thank you, Ms. Whitlock.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Christ. I'll open the floor for questions.
Because all of them did a good job.
Always lots of work going on here, so.
A lot of movement.
No questions at all for Denise.
Okay, so we still getting some resignations, right?
Yes. Fewer, but yes, unfortunately.
All right, hearing no questions, all in favor signify by aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving to our 6000 series, our points of personal privilege. Coach Ray, we'll start with you this evening.
Okay, I will be brief, I promise. Extracurricular, we meet, right now, Mr. Hogan set a meeting for November 13th,
13th, yes, sir.
and that'll be our meeting this, so hopefully after that, I'll have more to report on with that. But a lot of stuff going on in our county, a lot of kids involved in participating in activities across the board with athletics, band, theater. I mean, we're getting kids involved, and I think that's a plus. As far as the ESC, we've held our meetings virtually so far. We have one tomorrow, and I think that's to approve some money to go to our counties, which we're pleased with. And other than that, we have not had an in-person meeting for, when's the last one we had? Been a while, hasn't it, Mr. Hope?
Wow. But there is one that's going to be brought up tomorrow for November the 19th. I think it's going to be moved from Wednesday to Tuesday
Okay.
with the permission of the council tomorrow. I've talked to Jason about it. It'll be November 19th, and it will be here in our boardroom I gotta remind Amy tomorrow to check that, because we had originally scheduled for the 20th, and we need to move it to the 19th, to be in our boardroom at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we moved the time to 9 o'clock to hopefully help people to attend in person.
That came from the council members themselves.
Yes.
That did not come from
One person.
Coach Ray or I, because we sit in some leadership roles there. It came from the council itself.
Mr. President, that's all I have.
Okay. Coach, question, I know we've got a appeal at least for one designation with the SSAC coming up. Any insight
Well,
on that?
right now, what the SAC has done, they've opened up a special meeting, which, they have a special meeting. Thursday. And there's multiple proposals of how to handle the four-class system. There's one proposal, I think they do away with it, I don't know. There's so many of them.
There's 31 proposals.
It's
31 proposals. Coach, can I share for a minute? I know this is your category.
don't do it with all 31 of them.
No, I did. No, I won't. I did have a conversation with Richard and with Curtis this morning, and then I was with Chad later today. Paul and I were with Chad a little later today. Of course, Chad's, the board of directors, and Richard and Curtis have one of the proposals that went forth. They have asked those proposals, so by tomorrow morning, like Richard and them were meeting today, when I talked to him on the phone, him and Curtis had met with 3 or 4 other schools that had proposals that were similar. And what they're trying to do is narrow those down and make one proposal, to get 4 or 5 proposals, or 3 or 4 proposals to agree to change to one proposal. If they're close, they've got the schools working together, is what they've got. And so,
Very confusing.
yeah, it is. I'm a little concerned, and to be honest with you, and you've been in this role a lot, I haven't ever been in this role, except to think about the magnitude of it. They're gonna try to do it in one day, Thursday. They're gonna bring those proposals out tomorrow. I understand there is a Zoom meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, which don't ask me to explain what the Zoom meeting is. That came from Chad when he discussed it with me this afternoon. I mean, I'm appreciative that our principals, on every aspect, whether it be academics or whatever problems they have, they do communicate very well. And Chad expressed to me they're having a Zoom meeting, which he was kind of caught by surprise, but it was to review proposals before they got into Thursday's meeting. And nobody really knows the format of Thursday's meeting. I'm talking with Richard and them today, whether they're gonna review the proposals, if they've got combined proposals in the morning, take a lunch break, because they always get time to get schools to try to get together and garner votes. You know the routine, Coach, and I really don't want to.
That's a different routine I haven't seen.
I don't really want to elaborate. I really don't know what the end result's going to be, but as far as all appeals and waivers, to my understanding, once Thursday comes, that will, I don't know whether that eliminates them or not. I shouldn't open my mouth and make that statement.
Generally speaking, when they have proposals for the SAC, you vote each proposal separate. But most of the time, it's dealing with different issues in the bylaws. This is just one issue with multiple ways to address it. And we've got to hone it down to one, I don't know.
I don't see them
I can't figure it out.
solving it in that short of time. I mean, when I was a principal and I was going to those meetings, I never heard of anything like that, but I don't believe they can do it in a 24-hour period.
Well, it's just, but the problem is, Mr. Groom, is that they're dealing with just one issue.
Yeah, with
So
31
they're going to vote,
proposals.
I guess we're trying to vote one of the policies that have more votes than any of them would be I guess. I can't answer it.
I really, I didn't want to, all I wanted to do, Coach, and I should have shared that with you earlier, but we were dealing with so many things, and it was late in the afternoon meetings today, because I know you take a big interest in that and helping us move forward as a county with that issue. But all I did was pick up bits and pieces and talking with our principals today in terms of what their involvement was you know, they want to share with me what they're in the middle of doing so that I don't get surprised if somebody says your principal's doing that, and I do respect them for that, I really do.
I just can't understand or issue, or explain from my perspective now, what's going on.
I think, Mark, I was dealing with another matter with Richard this afternoon, not related to athletics, and Richard stepped out because Mark was in a combined meeting with several schools. They were on the internet to try to put their proposal together. I think they were trying to negotiate out what everybody was happy with, so.
When they came out with that policy, it put just about, the majority of the schools, it put them in a strange predicament, you know? I mean, when you take a school like Spring Valley, who's probably got more students than any school in the state, and you drop them to a AAA, and then you got a school that's half the size of Spring Valley, and you move them up to 4A, it just doesn't make sense. Now, when the athletic director at Riverside called to try to get clarification, I mean, they gave him nonsense. And what it amounted to, well, we looked at the schools that are winning and the schools that are losing. And they used that as a priority, which doesn't make any sense at all to me. They moved Riverside, who's got over 1,600 kids down there, they moved them to AAA. I mean, it's crazy.
The only thing is,
Because they're losing.
whether it's right, wrong, or different, we'll have assistants
Yeah.
in those buildings. We'll have assistants in those buildings in most situations on Thursday. We'll have assistants in all of them, actually. So the buildings won't be unattended to. But I do know that all of our secondary principals are going to be at Stonewall as a voting block, and they have all agreed upon the proposal that our one school's taken forward. I think that they're working as a team, which I'm appreciative of. Fayette County has stayed together, and I think they've lumped with some other counties to make some movement there, and to me, that's really important. I don't want our guys fighting each other. I think
I think they do a good job with that, I really do.
I'm proud of them for that issue.
And I think that the work that the extracurricular committee does keeps that cohesive.
I think it
I do
does.
too.
But then, Mr. President, one thing noted now, is I told you I was gonna be brief. And I was brief until Mr. Hogue interjected.
I know, I've got that noted.
So that goes against his time.
I got you, Coach. If you permit me, I'm going to say one more thing, only because I asked this question today. I think it's important. Our principals have told me how pleased they are with the banding policy. They said they do not have any more ruckus going on at games.
Good.
In corners and other locations. I know that was controversial, but they
I know anything
feel-
about it.
But I have asked them, I said, guys, tell me, they said, Mr. Hoke, it's a world of
Other
difference.
counties are gonna
We have
start.
control, we have control of the ball game. And to me, that's
Have we had any
really,
complaints?
what's that?
There's no complaint.
Not really complaints,
I
they
haven't
might
heard
get
that.
barked. I heard one from one of our schools, said somebody who wasn't even involved, that didn't even have a child to come through the gate, cussed out the ticket takers because we have that policy. Well, just somebody that was disgruntled. You know what I mean?
Some of the other counties are gonna jump on the bandwagon.
They are.
I was asked about it several times, Friday night, matter of fact. I think Kanawha County's gonna jump on it.
And that is the work of the extracurricular committee.
Well, they do it you go to a concert, it doesn't matter, you go to the hospital, you know, right, Josh? I
You
mean,
get banned,
Very
right?
true.
it's a band world, kids, so.
And you put controls on who's coming in and how they behave.
Well, and they, you know, it's not like
Especially you
we're
go to
the
a
first people
Riverside
to
game and the little
invent
kids
that.
are tripping you and throwing stuff and hitting you in the head and carrying on you. Shoot, them rascals under
All right.
control.
Coach, I know Mr. Hope took about 15 of your
About three-
minutes there.
yeah, more than that.
So, all right. Mr. Chris?
All right, no major updates on my two committees, other than to say, just to reiterate, prayers for Anna and her mom. And, and then this is a quick second thing, and then I'll pass the torch here to Mr. Groom. But we've attended 2 LSIC meetings this year, and, first for me attending, but have heard some great engagement happening, with our schools and their students and the communities. And so
I really just, that was encouraging. That's been so encouraging, and I really look forward to, our other upcoming LSIC meetings to see, what type of engagement is going on in their communities. So I just wanted to highlight that.
And before we leave you, Mr. Chris, and this might be a little outside your purview, but you have some inside knowledge on it. Mr. Hogue mentioned the Anstead ball field, and I have noticed they're doing work down there. They've taken all the fences down. So is there some major work happening down there, or?
Yes, they are adding some new fences, and I'll have to talk to Steve Pridemore. I know that, he's the mayor there in Anstead, and so to get some more updates, but I do know that they are replacing the fences, and then there are hopes in the future and I don't have a timeline on that, but hopes to do some, some really major renovations there to the fields.
Okay.
Josh.
Do we think that field's going to be available this spring?
I would want to talk to Steve first, not something I'd want to commit to today to answer, but, and then I think Steve too would be maybe, interested in coming and, talking to us as, the Board of Education here with us and about the plans and things of that nature.
And I think that's a good idea. And
Yeah. Get
I
on the
wanted
same
to
page.
make that connection with Candace, because that was one of my concerns today, that we try to give an opportunity for our Midland Trail kids to be able to play in the Midland Trail area, at least our softball team.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chris. Mr. Grant?
I don't have a whole lot either. I'm pretty much, Mr. Payton and Matt back there have, and Mr. Fritley and Mr. Dixon have given us a great report. I do want to say one thing about that. Every time I talk to Mr. Fritley, I enjoy what he's doing, and we have some great conversation. I still think we need to do a better job of selling Fayette County, because we are really doing great things. Most of you know I do some volunteer stuff down at Riverside, and I've had them ask me about things that we're doing here. They hear about it, like the banding thing, and even our security, To me, that makes me feel good, because I know we're doing what's best for our kids. Mr. Payton does an excellent job. I could toot his horn up a million times. They're also working on the bank down at Valley. They have a construction team down there reinforcing that bank, and they got all kinds of equipment down there. They're doing a good job, and I appreciate what's going on down there. The WVU extension, they're JR and some of his people, they're going into schools doing some teaching and assisting teaching and doing some things like that right now. I've invited him and Laura to come over, talk to us either on the 5th, or let me know in advance on the 5th or either the 19th, and just talk to us about what they did this summer with Energy Express, and also to discuss the possibilities of getting Energy Express in the Anstead area next year. That's something that I'm kind of hoping we can get. But again, we're doing some great things in this county, and it makes me feel good when I go places and I hear people talking about it. In fact, I was at Valley at a volleyball game the other night, and I asked the very question that Mr. Fritley asked: do you feel safe? And everybody that come through, yes. We like the fact that there's an officer here. The resource officer, he was there at the ball game. He was moving around. He was patrolling. The administration was there, and it makes you feel good when people feel like they're safe. Now, I know we're not 100% risk-proof, but I do believe we're at the top of the ladder doing some wonderful things in Fayette County, and I appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Ms. Whitlock?
We don't have FRN again until this Thursday, but we have Prevention Coalition today, and it's all collaborative effort with the folks that join into both of those groups. One of the things I wanted to share was every day I learn something new about prevention. And today, one of the things I learned was that there's a full-day conference in Charleston, and I'm going to pass this around, the State Prevention Summit. And I think I'm definitely going to try to go, but I just wanted to pass this around. in prevention, I was listening to a conversation about Fayette County prevention. You know, it's been going on for almost 7 years. It's one of the older, more sturdy ones in the state. And the difference in a county that doesn't have that and the county that does, they're still teaching the basics about what is prevention. And I know of a conversation in another county the other day where it was, you know, a healthcare person and a prevention person, and, you know, the idea, okay, we're gonna put Narcan boxes at Walgreens. And are you gonna brand them with the Prevention Coalition? Well, no, we're not gonna, well, that's where the money, the connection between, the difference between healthcare and prevention. Prevention is trying to prevent use and abuse, and healthcare is trying to prevent death. So there's some things that don't quite match up to get to the goals, and so it's just an interesting thing to think about. It just, sometimes I go to these meetings and I for hours I'm still trying to process everything that I hear within conversations. But all the things I heard today, of course, were fabulous. You know, FIT being involved in the underage drinking social media program that's coming up, the No Vape November things that are coming out, kids involved, and teachers and educators and churches involved in Red Ribbon Week, which has been going on for years. I think the public's finally got the idea what Red Ribbon Week is about. I remember us passing them out in church. I'm sure they still do. They're still planting the tulips, which always reminds me of the hymn of promise. You know, there's promise in planting that tulip, working the methods, and then in spring you see the flower. And I think that's a really strong symbolic thing. I also learned today that Keep a Clear Head is an evidence-based curriculum which all the third graders in Fayette County now have access to, and all of the fourth graders, I think now, and fifth graders in Fayette County have been trained, or will be by the end of this month, in Catch My Breath. Take Back Drug Day is this weekend. It's on the 26th. The Sheriff's Department's involved. New River Health has started getting involved because we do have a drop-off box. If anybody ever wants what they call Datira, which is a bag that you put your drugs in and they dissolve, I can get. I mean, we have them everywhere, and it is easier than doing the coffee grounds and trying to figure out other ways to do it. But we do have a drop-off box at the pharmacy in Oak Hill, and we will have one in all of our pharmacies before year end. The Narcan box that just got set up at Walgreens, there's going to be another one in Smithers, and it has been replenished. I don't know when it was in the paper, maybe last Thursday's Tribune, and now it's been replenished 3 different times, and there are, Narcan is in there, condoms, masks, and there's one other thing that's in there. But anyway, those things are coming back coming out into our county, and it takes a little bit of effort, but they do have obviously use. On Thursday at the FRN meeting, one of the providers, one of the coordinators, is going to do a short version of a program called Hidden in Plain Sight. And what they do is set up a kid's bedroom, or how a kid's bedroom looks, and you have to figure out where the drugs are hidden, or where they might be hidden, or where the cigarettes might be hidden. And it's a pretty interesting program. So if anybody knows of something that they need special for a parent training, or a youth group, not youth group, but like an adult group of people that need to kind of wake up a little bit, Hidden in Plain Sight is, I mean, you wouldn't believe the number of things on Amazon you can order to hide stuff in. It's incredible. It's an incredible business. Next, this is a long ways off, but it's really not when I look at life. In April, some of you, when I say this, you're going to know what I'm talking about. I didn't. There's a program, very popular program with kids and adults called Tall Cop Says Stop. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Oh, good, you can Google it, because I just did.
What's it called?
But anyway, Tall Cop Says Stop. And this guy is traveling around the country, his name is Jermaine, I think. Tall Cop Says Stop, and he will be at the New River Convention Center in the spring, doing a free program through the FRN and some of the programs and grants that they have done. Have got him together, and he's coming back, but everybody in the room, except me, knew what they were talking about. Interesting, another interesting angle of me being thankful I live here, work here, and hang out with you guys a couple times a month. You know, I was at a high school where we have health care today, and for the last, I didn't realize, when I started talking to all of our one-on-one behavioral health providers that we have in the schools are LICSWs. They are all qualified and licensed to have a one-on-one counseling relationship. So this school in particular has somebody sitting in that seat in the school who is not licensed to do that and is doing that. And everyone in the school, the administration has decided that everyone in the school, including the football coach who used to do a lot of referrals, none of them can refer to New River Health's professional until it goes through this person. So in the last 2 years with the new principal that's at this school and the vice principal, that 100% of our counselor, our behavioral health providers, 100 kids have been self-referred or referred by another child. And this is a high school.
Wow.
And it takes my breath, it pisses me off, and it makes me so happy to come here tonight and be among all of you in this room, from bus driver to superintendent and everybody in between, that understands the importance of mental health. And another school where she also works in another school, in that school, the administrator sends her only special ed kids. And we deal with special ed. We can de-escalate. There are things that we can do, because not all of them are not smart, as you know. So basically, the way she looks at kids is, you know, if you've got your shoes on the wrong feet, you're special, you know, that's how you see a special ed person. But if you've got straight A's and you've already been accepted at Marshall, why do you need to see this child? And it took my breath, because I know
That's
exactly
crazy,
why I need
too.
to see this child, because
Yeah.
this child
Stress.
stops eating if she gets a B.
Yeah.
This child, and so things are so out of whack everywhere I turn, or it seems like it is. And then I come here and I feel like you listen, you understand. Like I said, the bus drivers, everybody in this little cocoon of Fayette County doesn't have to be in the school system, understands the importance of healthy mental health people, healthy kids. And there again, the other side, another soapbox I always get on, you always hear me say this, the kids are raising the kids. I'm not as worried about the grandparents anymore as I am about the teenagers in our homes that are taking the kids to school, that are making sure they get on the bus, that are working and making $2,000 a month at McDonald's or whatever, and at the end of the month, they have $80 because they've paid the electric bill and they've paid half of the mortgage on the house. And they get, if they make any more money, then they get dinged on, the mom's working, say at Tutors, nothing wrong with Tutors, but you know, not making big bucks, then she will get dinged if she has more income than they. So I think we're upside down when it comes to who we're aiming at for complaining about the parents. I get it, but my goodness, we've got a lot of teenagers in this county who are raising their siblings and their next door neighbors and their friends, because you also hear a lot of boyfriends staying with girlfriend and girlfriends staying with boyfriend, and oh my God, that's terrible. Well, they get a meal, they get a bed, they get taken to school, there are things going on in that home that isn't going on in their home. And it's not always about sex, it's about Maslow's, you know, it's not about the things oh my God, they're spending the night. No, it's about needs that their parents aren't providing. And it scares me that when they get in a position where they're making some money, they're gonna get dinged, their family's gonna get dinged. That doesn't seem fair. There's a gap there that we're not seeing. And I know Cynthia sees it because she knows the reasons kids don't go to school, because their sister didn't get them up, or their sister went to college and now she's not home to, you know. Anyway, I'm done with my soapbox, but it was a pleasure coming here tonight to know that I am in a nest of support when I go off on my little soapbox things. It's not little and it's scary. It scares me to death that we have so many kids that need out there. I have a guy who works at WAY, he just took on 4 teenagers just so they could stay together into his home where he has 2 teenagers already. He's adding on to his house. He's working through the process. He couldn't stand to have these 4 kids be separated by CPS, so he's taken them all on. It's one of his daughter's best friends is one of the kids, and you know, there are people out there. And there again, I go back to Fayette County. It's not happening in the other counties where I work. Thank you for being my nest.
Thank you, Ms. Whitlock. Just for climate and culture, just a quick update as well. We are in our survey period for our staff. So it started last week. I think we run through Friday of this
Yes.
week. Last update we had, we were over 400 responses. So again, still good responses coming in from the workforce. And then Student Advisory Committee meeting, when's your next?
It's December, I didn't bring the date, it's like December the 4th or something.
Okay, so I know that's.
I had a
couple months
discussion
away.
this week, and we're getting information out, so.
I think that's the only update I have. And with that, Mr. Superintendent,
Is Coach gonna tell me to use my turn?
you've used most of it, he said.
You know what, Cindy, believe it or not, I had made a note earlier, and you reiterated that note. You know, I was talking to a colleague of mine today for a few minutes, and discussions in a board where board members were arguing back and forth that children really don't have anxiety and they don't have these issues, and there's no need for mental health services. Believe it or not, Cindy, I'll share that with you in private a little later, because I'm not.
They give me anxiety
Okay.
talking about it.
But I had made a note earlier to say, number one, thank you for keeping it on the forefront for us as board. And I think that is also, Ms. Klein deserves some credit, she's not here tonight, over making sure we're staffed with social workers and with counselors and working with projects like Project Aware and making sure those programs are out and active, and the work that River Health has done with us. It's just tremendous. But it also, you hit it on the head, it speaks extremely well of the board. We all bring different things to the table, but we work together as a team to do what's right for young people. And thank you for that leadership, because I did make a note here, believe it or not, you're the one that said it, so it wasn't my plan. Mr. Chris, I want to make a statement to you tonight. I like how you wear different shirts for different schools, because I really do. I give you a lot of credit for that, okay? Josh, you've been an excellent new addition to our board, and I just want to say that very clearly. Great board members, you know how I feel about each one of you, but Josh, you've been a great addition, and I know you mix that school up. You can tell them I'm a board member of Fayette County.
That's right.
Not a board member of any particular school, so thank you for doing that. And I have some different ones from different schools. Maybe I'm safe in wearing them sometimes for board meetings. I don't ever want to offend somebody by that. So I
Make sure we touch all the bases.
all the bases, absolutely. I want to make a kudo here that I didn't make earlier. He's hiding all the way back in the back far right-hand corner of us, and that's Mr. Matt Harper. You know, Matt was a new addition this year. I've got a great team. You know how I feel about Andy and Paula and Cynthia and Denise and Tim. I already made my statement about Tim, and I just made a statement about Anna and her work that she does. All of my team members that do a great job. But you know, when you add a new person to the team, you don't know how they're gonna do. Matt has far exceeded, and I told him that today in a conversation, but I want to say that publicly in a board meeting.
Great.
A man has taken on a new job, we kind of knew he had that in him, but Matt's done an outstanding job in a new role, and Bridge Day was another example of that. He went out there and took leadership, and I really kept my nose out of most of Saturday. Did I not, Matt? A couple conversations went by and talked to him, kept my nose out of it. You know, that was something I did for many years, and it's time to turn the reins over and not stick my nose in it. And that's hard for me.
I don't believe it.
Matt, is it the truth that I keep my nose out of it?
He did.
Our State Police Special Operations Detachment all know me because of the number of years I've worked with them. And I drove by and they said, "Are you coming today?" I said, "Nope. I got a leadership man, and Mr. Harper is going to take care of it. You don't need me. He's going to manage it, and he managed it extremely well, but he does that every day." Matt is sitting in that office, sometimes 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock. He's sitting in that office running that operation and dealing with any problems and out in schools. And, you know, you don't want to forget that. But he's a new addition to our team. Our team is a good team, but he's a new addition to that team. Matt, thank you in front of everybody. The rest of the team knows how I feel about them, and I've said that at different times. They've done an outstanding job. But, Matt, don't want to forget that.
Those bus drivers are such a great ambassador. I mean, I always ride the bus, and people that don't ride the bus are missing it. But I rode on Mike Fox's bus. He's coming back, I guess, eventually. But
Well, he keeps hanging out. Believe it or not.
Yeah, he was on. I mean, you get on the bus and he's singing and they're playing music and they're telling you it's like going down the river. They're telling you facts about Fayette
Like you're on
County.
a tour.
Yeah.
About every 2 weeks, Mike calls me, and I just give him a reminder, the door's always open, Mike.
Yeah. I'm sure.
The other issue is, and I'll just be just about as honest as I can be, one of the things is that the bus driver crew has to have somebody with a little bit of a sense of humor. Matt's pretty quiet when you see him at first. If you're back there, boy, he can give some funny jabs, maybe even to the superintendent. He gives some funny jabs. I think that I referred to him and Mr. Payton last week as, are you having a smart aleck contest back and forth with me? But I enjoy that, and they know how that is. I enjoy that. They're unbelievably loyal to whatever I need to do, so I don't view that as a smart aleck. But they can jab me back, and I can jab them, and I do appreciate that a lot. They're not afraid to operate that way, and that's something that I appreciate. I don't want to forget tonight, other than to take just a couple minutes that with the academic achievement end. I want at least the board to have some knowledge. I know that we've had Ms. Klein out because of family emergencies and illness, and we're going to have her report effectively on the 22nd again, but we don't want to forget to keep the board abreast. We talked about fields and construction and safety and everything else, but the academic achievement end, a couple things that we have done on the iReady component in particular. I want the board to know it's not just about being on iReady. They have to have 2 pass lessons a week. That's a requirement, and we're engaging those so that our people are using it in a meaningful way. It's about meaningful usage, along with what we had been doing for many years, and that's using the 10-minute talks and having effective instruction at higher DOK levels. We're still proceeding 100% with that. I want the board to be aware of that part of the component. And then this tie-in to expectations and rigor. I think our teachers are picking that up, that they're going to have to use those MOYs as a measurement tool for semester test. I think that I want to be careful to not tell you that it's important that you listen to the public, because I think that's always an important role. That's what the board's role is. They serve the public. But I appreciate the fact that you have been able to entangle that service of the public to doing what's best academically for children and look at the long-term effects. Because as we've looked at these issues, I know as we move forward, it's probably going to upset somebody when somebody gets a C instead of a B. Or somebody doesn't achieve this. We're not doing that on purpose. We're trying to set that rigor at a level that we can set that rigor at. I had a discussion with a college parent about a week ago about what do you think the downfall is when they're hitting college and they're struggling with those first set of tests and those first set of expectations and they're not scoring as well. And I said, it's something we've been working on. It's about that rigor. When if they face it more in the high school level, if we face it all the way through our educational format, when they get there, it will become a much easier process. And I'm going to tell you where my children found the greatest challenges, where they would both tell you is where they found the greatest success later in life. And so that's kind of where it's at. So we continue to move forward with that. And that's about all I have to say tonight.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hope. So I don't see Ms. Dooley.
She is back in the room getting ready for,
So we do
hearing.
have.
We have a hearing,
hearings,
yes.
Okay. So with that, in accordance with 6-9A-4.3 school laws, governing body of a public agency may hold an executive session during regular, special, or emergency meeting upon majority of affirmative vote of members present for disciplining, suspension, or expulsion of any student in any public school unless the student requests an open meeting. Do I have a motion to go into
So
executive
moved.
session? Thank you, Coach Ray. And my second?